Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Randana Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Randana Yamuna Tera Vanachari Yamuna Tera Vanachari Radha Madhava Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Randana Yamuna Tera Vanachari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhav ki Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Rashtraprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Translation together. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the personality of God and Narayan, to Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart, destroyed. Loving service unto the personality of Godhead, His praise transcendent songs established as an irrevocable. Hare Krishna. So usually, the speaker sometimes asks the audience, like, what has been, to test everyone, what has been going on. But everyone, like all of you, have been in the previous classes, but I have been missing all the action. So maybe you can fill me in on what's happening. Yes, Jonathan. Janishinga Prabhu.
I get for clear. So is Maharaj Parikshit and Yudhisthira having a conversation that Narada Muni and Lord Brahma had about Krishna? So where we are.
So Sutta Goswami asked Sukadev Goswami. Sorry, everyone, all the sages are asking Sutta Goswami, who's talking about Parikshit Maharaj asking Shukadev Goswami. And Shukadev Goswami is saying that Narada Muni asked the same questions to Brahma. So let me tell you how the conversation was. So Narada Muni asked the questions to Brahma, and this is everything that Brahma is telling Narada Muni. That these are all the incarnations like which came on earth. And in the first verse of this chapter, he says that I remember all this because this is very close to my heart. Like this is such a deep impression of my heart. That's why I remember all this. And so what are we studying in this chapter? What is the name of the chapter?
Scheduled incarnations.
So what was the last incarnation that was described? Yes. So there was some like some preview of all the sweetness that Krishna, all the sweet pastimes that Krishna performs, which is in the 10th canto. But Brahma tells very briefly. Does anyone remember what like pastimes that was mentioned about like of Krishna? The 3 or 4 pastimes mentioned. Yes, Nartana? Putana, yeah. He called Putana. What else? Yeah, that Madhya Yashoda binding him, Damodar, and also talked about well, Krishna was performing the Rasa dance pastime, maybe one or before that. There was a demon named Sankachura who tried to like steal all the gopis. I don't know, yeah, when it's there. One of the previous ones. Anyways, so Lord Krishna also killed the demon Sankachura. Yeah, this is the one. This is the last pastime that was described. And then Lord Brahma moves on and talks about all like how different demons all fought Krishna, and Krishna either himself or through his devotees like destroyed all these demons. This is the verse which talks about that. And he goes on like mentioning all this different like this is the last incarnation, but he mentions some general like philosophical principles about Krishna's appearance. And based on Bhagavad Gita, we know there's specific reasons why Krishna appears or when Krishna appears. Who could share one of those reasons why Krishna appears or takes an incarnation? Annihilate the miscreants and protect the devotees. What is that verse? Paritranaya sadhanam vinasaya dushkritam dharma samsthapanartha, to establish the principles of religion. That is when Krishna comes. Krishna comes upon this earth, either himself directly or through one of his incarnations. Today we're going to read from verses 46 to 53. A little disclaimer, you might have some questions after reading verse 46, but I'm not very qualified to answer that. Okay, but let's start reading. Yeah.
Surrendered souls, even from groups leading sinful lives, such as women, the laborer class. Why did I tweet this? The mountaineers and the Siberians. Those are the first. Or even the birds and beasts can also know about the science of Godhead and become liberated from the clutches of the illusory energy by surrendering unto the pure devotees of the Lord and by following in their footsteps in devotional service.
What is realized as the absolute Brahman is full of unlimited bliss without grief. That is certainly the ultimate phase of the supreme enjoyer, the personality of Godhead. He is eternally void of all disturbances and is fearless. He is complete consciousness as opposed to matter. Uncontaminated and without distinctions, he is the principal primeval cause of all causes and effects, in whom there is no sacrifice for fruitive activities, and in whom the illusory energy does not stand.
In such a transcendental state, there is no need of artificial control of the mind, mental speculation, or meditation, as performed by the jnanis and yogis. One gives up such processes as the heavenly king Indra forgoes the trouble to dig a well.
The personality of Godhead is the supreme master of everything auspicious, because the results of whatever actions are performed by the living being in either the material or spiritual existence are awarded by the Lord. As such, he is the ultimate benefactor. Every individual living entity is unborn, and therefore, even after the annihilation of the material elementary body, the living entity exists exactly like the air within the body.
My dear son, I have now explained in brief the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the creator of the manifested worlds. Without him, Hari, Lord, there are no other causes of the phenomenal and nominal existences.
O Narada, this science of God, Srimad Bhagavatam, was spoken to me in summary by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and it was spoken as the accumulation of his diverse potencies. Please expand this science yourself.
Please describe the science of Godhead with determination and in a manner by which it will be quite possible for the human being to develop transcendental devotional service unto the personality of Godhead Hari, the super soul of every living being in the Suman Bonum, source of all energies.
The Lord's activities and association with its different energies should be described, appreciated, and heard in accordance with the teachings of the Supreme Lord. If this is done regularly with devotion and respect, one is sure to get out of the illusory energy of the Lord.
Thank you. That's the end of the chapter. It's a few different verses that I want to share my understanding on. But the verse of focus today is 48. So let's go to verse 48. And it's a very interesting verse. One interesting in one way is that the verse that is there, I cannot fit any meter into that verse. So we will just, if you want, you guys can give a try. But we can just do one, I say one word or you say one word. Yeah, it doesn't fit into the other two liners. Sadriyan Niyamya Yataya Yamakarta Hetim Jahyu Swarad Eva Nipana Khanitram Indra Sadryam Niyamya Yatayo Yamakarta Hetim Jayu Swaradiva Nipana Khanitramindra. Anyone else likes to try? Yamakarta Hetim Jayu Swarad Nipana Khanitramindra. Sadryan Niyamya Yatayo Yamakarta Hetim Jayu Swaradi Vanipana Khanitramindra. It's missing two other lines. Okay. Anyone else like give it a try? Or we can. We'll go to the synonyms. Yeah. Let's do it together. Sadryak, a mental speculation or meditation. Niyamya, controlling. Yataya, the mystics. Yamakarta Hetim, the process of spiritual culture. Jayu, are given up. Swarad, fully independent. Eva, as Nipana, wealth. Anitram, trouble for digging. Indra, the controlling demigods supplying rains. Translation together. In such a transcendental state, there is no need of artificial control of mind, mental speculation, or meditation, formed by the great
One gives us such prophecies as the heavenly king Indra goes to trouble to dig a well.
Purport. Anyone like to read the purport?
A poor man in want of water digs a well and undertakes the trouble of digging. Similarly, those who are poor in transcendental realization speculate on the mind or meditate by controlling the senses. But they do not know that such control of the senses and achievement of spiritual perfection are simultaneously made possible as soon as one is factually engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Supreme Person, the personality of Godhead. It is for this reason that the great liberated souls also desire to be associated in hearing and chanting the activities of the Lord. The example of Indra is very appropriate in this connection. King Indra of heaven is a controlling deity or demigod for arranging clouds and supplying rains in the universe, and as such, he does not have to take the trouble to dig a well for his personal water supply. For him, digging a well for a water supply is simply ludicrous. Similarly, those who are factually engaged in the loving service of the Lord have attained the ultimate goal of life, and for them there is no need of mental speculation to find out the true nature of God or his activities. Nor does such devotees have to meditate upon the imaginary or real identity of the Lord, because they are actually factually engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord's pure devotees have already achieved the results of mental speculation and meditation. The real perfection of life is therefore to be engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord.
Thank you. So, have some of you heard of this branch of study called quantum physics or quantum chemistry or quantum mechanics in general? It's such a buzzword these days. It's a very whenever you tell someone that you're studying quantum chemistry or quantum mechanics, you think, oh, that's such a hi-fi thing and you must be so smart. And when I was in 10th and 11th grade, me and my friends created a little group and we were trying to read different theories about quantum chemistry, quantum mechanics. And we didn't really have the qualification to understand that, but we were engaged in similar mental speculation where we're thinking, oh, this is how it must be. And based on our limited experience, we're trying to understand the whole world based on what was described in these literatures. But soon, when I was in my undergraduate course, and then I finally came here for my graduate studies, and I really had the mathematical background to actually understand what quantum mechanics was, then I realized that everything that I was thinking about it back then through my mental speculation, it's so different what it actually is. If I had waited patiently for a few more years, all that mental speculation that I did was just for our entertainment. There was no other value served by that. But in academic world, it's actually encouraged sometimes that you engage in such mental speculation, even if you're wrong, because that is kind of the process. You're wrong and then you learn the right thing, and just by engaging, using your mind and thinking about it, it says that it's beneficial. But here the opposite is pointed out, that if you're directly engaging in the service of the Lord, if you're already a devotee who is at that stage of directly serving the Lord, for them there is no need of mental speculation. But for someone, it says that someone who is poor in transcendental realization, they speculate in the mind or meditate by controlling the senses. If you're in this way, it kind of says that there's a hierarchy of different levels. When you're starting out, when you don't have any other knowledge of the absolute, if you don't have much experience of the absolute, you start by imagining what it must be. We start picturing this is what God must be, and everyone has a different idea about how to achieve God, how to realize God. But it's saying that simply if you follow the instructions given in the scriptures and you engage in the service of the Lord, you will achieve the results that after many years of mental speculation you might get. There's philosophers who engage in philosophical discussion and speculation for many years. Now we have an age of we have this body which can survive for 80 or 100 years. But even back in Dwapar Yugas, Treta Yuga, there used to be such classes of people who used to engage in such discussions and debates. And it said that if you didn't have a different opinion than the others, you're not qualified to become a Muni. You didn't qualify to become a Rishi. So you had to engage in that kind of discussion or debate in order to establish yourself. But that is not what we are interested in. We are not interested in just finding a different or proposing a different way to understand God. If you want to make our life simple, it said that if you already are living next to a body of water, you wouldn't like take the trouble of digging up a well. Simply like Indra, he's the one who supplies all the water for demigod, who supplies or controls the rainfall of this world. And for him to dig a well is like, yeah, Prabhupada used the word ludicrous. Like, you'd be like, yeah, why does he need that? Like, that doesn't make any sense. And so similarly, it's quite an interesting analogy. And for me, it sounded like quite funny the way it's said. In this case, it's like Indra is being glorified. There's a lot of chapters or like verses in Bhagavatam we're talking about sometimes Indra makes mistakes, but here at least we're glorifying Indra. In a similar way, like if we're engaged in this devotional service of the Lord, we're coming together with the devotees and discussing the highest truth, we don't have to engage in mental speculation. It said that they do not know that control of senses and achievement spiritual perfection is simultaneously made possible as soon as one is factually engaged in transcendental loving service. This reminds me of a verse in Bhagavatam, which says that just as, let's say you're hungry and you really need nourishment and you also want to taste like good food. As soon as you start eating, you can feel all these three effects simultaneously. If you start that you can feel that you're being nourished, your hunger is slowly going away, and also you're tasting the food, which is like, if it's delicious, you taste the food. Similarly, when you engage in devotional service, I'll just pull up the verse. This is called Bhakti Parishano Bhava Viraktir Anyatra Chaishatrika Kala. So similarly, when you engage in devotional service of the Lord, you get three things. You get devotion, you get direct experience of the Supreme Lord, which you get through your realizations, through experience. And the third thing, you also get detachment from other things. Like you don't have to pursue being detached on a separate level. The same way that you don't have to meditate that, okay, I'm eating this bite to get nourished. I'm taking this bite so that I want to remove my hunger. With each bite, all these three things come simultaneously. Similarly, with devotional service, these are the byproducts of devotional service. The devotee does not pray for, like, we try to control our senses, but we don't have to make a separate effort. Like Palakanta Prabhu often points out that just by engaging like in the morning program, by engaging in the activities that are laid out here for us in the ashram, we don't have to make a completely separate endeavor that I have to control my senses, that I have to become detached from the world, that I have to practice being detached from my family, or anything else. These things come as a byproduct of our experience knowledge. Also, like some people might have this goal of just becoming a good human being. Like I know, like there was a phase when I was just interested in Krishna consciousness, but all I wanted to do is like try to become a better human being. Like I know we've all like had that realization that, and also a lot of people ask that, like, do we have to practice all this, like engage in organized religion? Isn't it just good if we are just becoming a good human being ourselves? And then we try to do the best for others. We have the best, like we try to develop good qualities ourselves. So this was my motivation. And I had kind of come across this verse, but in that phase of life, I again like read this verse, which is from Srimad Bhagavatam, which goes as Yashyasti Bhaktir Bhagavatir Akinchana Sarva Gunis Tatra Samata Satesura. The translation goes like this: all the demigods and their exalted qualities, such as religion, knowledge, and renunciation, become manifest in the body of one who has developed unalloyed devotion for the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vasudeva. On the other hand, a person devoid of devotional service and engaged in material activities has no good qualities. That is quite a strong statement. Even if he is adept at the practice of mystic yoga or the honest endeavor of maintaining his family and relatives, he must be driven by his own mental speculation and must engage in the service of Lord's external energy. How can there be any good qualities in such a man? Like, I know this sounds quite strong. Like, do we not see like good people out there in the world who are like genuinely and honestly trying to like serve others and not, at least it seems like they're not serving their own self-interest. They're only engaged in the service of others. Like, how could we say that there is no such good qualities in such people? But what this verse is saying and what Prabhupada explains in the purport is that even if you have all such like seemingly material good qualities, ultimately it comes to no use because you're still stuck in the cycle of material death and birth. And the person you're trying to help, they're also not being ultimately helped. Like they're being helped in the circumstance of the present body, which is very helpful, which also the devotees do. But the devotees also provide something which is beyond this birth and death and this body. And that is why when you have good qualities and you're practicing devotional service, that is of a much higher platform than just like trying to like practice such good qualities. And here's the best thing, like you don't have to make a separate endeavor of trying to get these demigodly qualities of tolerance, compassion. When you practice devotional service, Krishna acts through you. Krishna softens your heart, and thus all these qualities that you're achieving or you want to achieve, you're striving for, they come naturally to you. And this is like a big motivational factor for me to want to come like and start practicing devotional service, because this goal that I had of I just want to be a good human being, I realized that I could be that naturally by practicing like devotional service. And after living a few years in the ashram, I actually started reflecting back, like this was my goal, like while I was in undergrad, this is what I wanted to be. But still, like I used to get so annoyed at little things. I used to like push the wrong buttons in people. One trip when I was one trip back home, one of my friends said that I don't know what has happened to you, but the person that you were when you were in like college seems like you've become a much better person. Like I know some of my friends had back then told me it seems like you're practicing devotional service, because my family, like my parents were devotees, so I was kind of practicing. For them, it was like you are engaged in this the Hare Krishna society or this ISKCON society, but it doesn't seem like you're actually like imbibing those values, because we see you as very selfish. And had good friends who actually told me like face to face that I think like not actually imbibing good qualities. But the same friends, after many years, they told me that we feel like there's something like good which has changed in you. That was like a big attestation to my faith in this process. Then that just by practicing devotional service amongst other devotees, it is having a positive impact on my life and also the people who are in my life who are observing me. So that was my like personal experience. Would anyone else like to share if they had like such a goal, such an ideal of wanting to be a good human being, and and if the devotional service helped you?
Well, this is a little different than that, but any teacher can tell you you can learn something from everyone. And Prabhupada says in one of the purports, I think in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, that we can see most men have some good qualities. But he also says, he does say, non-devotees have no good qualities. But it's explained somewhere in the purport. And all that means is, or what it means, is that because they're not following some ultimate authority, they're sure to take shelter of their own mental concoctions.
Yeah. So one other example I remember is that when if a man is hungry and you, like in the literal sense, if you give him a fish, he eats for a day. But if you teach him how to fish, he can sustain his own life. Similarly, when we're just trying to mitigate the temporary situation for someone, they're relieved. They receive temporary relief. But when you teach them how to overcome the cycle of birth and death, that's the highest welfare one can do for all the human beings. And Krishna does say in the Bhagavad Gita that someone who spreads my knowledge and teaches it to other human beings, he's my most favorite. Yes, Brandon, you have a point?
Yeah, I was gonna say, in my past, for me, I always thought I was trying to help others and to do good by first, going into the military. I thought that's the way I can help others and be good service to other people. And then I realized that that's not really helping anybody, in the long run, you potentially could hurt somebody. So then I tried something else, and so I kept going around the spiritual path. I never tried it out. And so then I tried to do vaping because my parents, they smoke cigarettes and stuff. And I've had some, my grandparents that passed away from cigarettes, like COPD. So I'm like, I'm going to create, e-juice. And so my old brand was like smoking is the disease, vaping is the cure. So I thought I was helping people by creating e-juice. And then I eventually went from that to, graphic design and t-shirts. I'm like, oh, I can help people change their consciousness by seeing positive messages on shirts. And then that can help people, but it's not going to truly bring them to God consciousness. And so then I found yoga, and now it's like, then I found bhakti yoga. And so now I feel like, just like you said, the ultimate thing we can do is to bring somebody to bhakti yoga, to bring somebody to devotional service where they can find God. And so now it's like, I'm trying to spiritualize all the things that God has given me, the skills and talents to be able to try to bring awareness to people of God consciousness. So I realized that in the past I was trying to help others, like do goods, service and such, but that was never truly fulfilling. And just like you said, like even having friends that message me like, "Oh, I've been watching your journey," and I started reading the Bhagavad Gita after seeing, what you're doing. That's more fulfilling than, something in the past, like maybe like, being in the military and be like, "Oh, well, I could potentially, save somebody," even though you don't really feel like you are doing that. Yeah.
For sharing that. Yeah, a lot of us, we have had that genuine interest that we want to do something good, but what's missing is we don't know how to do that. And that's the path of our spiritual journey. Like we slowly, like our motivation changes, or the motivation that the path that we're undertaking, that changes. And slowly, if we have good fortune, we come in contact with the devotees, we discover bhakti yoga, and then we actually learn like how to do good for others. For the outside world, it seems like we're just wasting our time because we're taking resources from them. We're not working according to like outside people, that we are just depending on the government for things. We're taking things for free, and we're actually taking like resources from the external world and not giving anything back to them. But it's on the contrary that I think there's a debate between Gopal Krishna Maharaj and TV anchor, like one of our Gopal Krishna Maharaj was one of our like great spiritual leaders. And so on this in this interview, the host is telling us that you guys are cop-outs, like you're not engaging in any like jobs, you don't like do anything, you're just like singing and chanting all day, and like what is it? But he just like Gopal Krishna Maharaj just calls him out, like you are the cop-out, like just like right to his face, and that you're like you should be like helping us like spread this knowledge because it is for the ultimate like welfare of everyone, but you're not doing that and you're just engaged in like your so-called duties. Yeah, and that's what, yeah, it reminded me of that. Although it appears outwardly that we're wasting our time, like I know people who like also were in a PhD program similar to me, and for them, like yeah, they studied, maybe they did the work for 8-10 hours a day, and then rest of they had like the recreation in which they socialized, they went to hang out with their friends, like drink beer and watch some shows and all these things. And for them, it would seem like I spend 3 hours every morning here in an ashram. For them, it's like you could have used all that time for furthering your studies in your PhD. Yeah, for sleeping. Like how could you like wake up early in the morning? Like it's just waste of time. But what they don't realize is that what effect it is having on me internally as a person. Like externally, yeah, I could have a few more things out there. And sometimes even you can have the best in the outside world, like by following a disciplined life as a devotee. So it's not like you're missing out on the like what is called the good stuff in the outside world. You're still being able to do both. That is the advantages of like living life as a devotee. Anyone else would like to share anything? Yes, finishing up.
Yeah, I just, when I first came, and I still battle a lot with intolerance, specifically like dealing with other people. And yeah, I just feel like you've always been such a really good example for me of how you deal with people so calmly and fairly and patiently. So sometimes I even told Radhika's dad this. Sometimes I think about how would Nitai handle this situation with this devotee. So I appreciate you being such a good example here for me, and that it's really inspiring to hear that you did come from a place where you were like struggling with that before, because I would have never guessed or known that at all.
What we see in someone right now, even if there's something like bad that we see in someone, thank you, you're very kind for seeing the good in me. But even when you see the bad in someone, we don't know like what they've been through, like all the struggles they've been through. And the same person, even they're acting like rashly right now, they're in the process. If they're in the right process, they'll eventually become best version of themselves. Yeah, I was very grateful that I had mentors and friends who were patient with me when I was struggling. And so, yeah, because of them, like I'm at a stage where seemingly I'm more tolerant. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yes.
Hare Krishna. Anyone who knows me from like before I moved into the ashram has seen a very significant change throughout this time. But recently, I lived in the ashram for a substantial amount of time, and then I moved out to go to school, and I've just been surrounded by people that aren't practicing spiritual life and aren't concerned with the eternal. They are nice people, they're doing nice things, but I've just noticed that what the way that I engage with them and the way that they engage with me, it just feels a lot, even though there's some level of love, some degree of love, it's not true. It doesn't feel like true love because there's no understanding of the eternal soul. They're just experiencing personalities that they get along with or don't. And so it stays surface level. That's one thing that came to mind. Another thing that came to mind is recently I've decided for some reason to paint on the back of my car, let go, let God. And at first I was like, why am I doing this? And it's been a really cool process of like seeing my consciousness change just by kind of wearing a badge. Like I am someone who loves God and wants you to love God, like making that a very external like show or whatever, like display of yeah. And so I noticed I used to not really give things to homeless people because we talk about giving in charity, like the modes when you give to somebody, you might give money to a homeless person and they might use it for drugs. So it seemed as a very negative thing. And so I still don't do that really, but I decided to buy a bunch of snacks to keep in my car because my thought was like, if I have this on the back of my car and I pull up next to a homeless person and I can't even look at them because I feel ashamed that I'm not helping them, then how am I representing the Lord? So yeah. And I make a point to like say God bless, it's not just here's some food, like eat for a day, right? It's like this food that I'm giving you is because of God. Like it's because of devotion to God and God moving through someone. So like offering that reminder has been really powerful also. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, just like reminding them that you don't have to just feel grateful to me, like you can express your gratitude to me for giving you this snack, but ultimately it comes to God. And when we do something good for them, but we identify that this is not eventually me, but this is Krishna sanctioning this whole act. And not just it's not that we're the only ones who are purified, the person who's receiving is also like purified. So that's a good way of engaging that propensity. Yeah, I understand. Like when you pull up next to like someone like who's homeless and they're asking for help, it's hard sometimes to maintain eye contact because that desire is there to help them, but I personally hold back thinking, if I give them money, that it's going to be misused. But it's but Radhika sometimes likes to keep food also, and she would like to hand out. Very good. Thank you for sharing. But just text 53, if you could pull up text 53. Yes.
The verse we read in the perfect, well, the verse itself, I believe it says how, one through devotional service, and it's not through, the meditation, mental speculation, and so forth. And it just kind of made me think of, what Shishika Prabhu was talking about scrolling, and he was saying how, he was saying the answer is chanting. And when I was doing japa today, I was like, oh my God, the mind scrolls through so many thoughts. It's like a scroll, actually. It's like scrolling social media. And then I was thinking how Narada Muni, when he was speaking to Vyasadeva, he said that for those who are suffering due to those who have fear and anxiety because of attachment, because of the focus on the sense of objects, they can be relieved by constantly chanting the holy names of the Lord. So it was like, that's the solution, for the mind and everything, bhakti yoga, but specifically chanting. And the other processes, and also especially like the jnani method and the meditation, it takes a lot of effort actually. But actually it doesn't give as much result as constantly chanting.
I was, when you were sharing this, mentioning Vaisheshika Prabhu talking about scrolling, I was just thinking of when we're chanting the beats also, we are scrolling on the beats. But that's what was coming to my mind. Like either you could scroll on your beats or you could scroll on social media. Yeah. Yeah, verse 53, if you had that. Yeah, could you go translation? Yeah, this is like in each, sometimes when in Bhagavatam, there's a chapter and at the end, there's a Falashruti or what do you get after hearing this chapter. This is kind of describes that. Lord's activities in association with his different energies should be described, appreciated and heard in accordance with the teachings of the Supreme Lord. If this is done regularly with devotion and respect, one is sure to get out of the illusory energy of the Lord. So I know, when I personally felt that, I've heard my friends share that some sections of the Bhagavatam, it is hard to get through them. Beginning of the second canto and some parts, I don't know where this creation is described and the hellish planets are described. I don't know who would really enjoy that, but it's hard to get through certain sections of Bhagavatam. But here it's being emphasized that Lord's activities in association with his different energies. It's not that you should only read his pastimes where he's interacting with his devotees, or where he's doing Ras Leela, where he's doing the sweet pastimes in Vrindavan. That is his interaction with his internal energy. But Lord also has external energy, which is what is being described when we're talking about the creation and how in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna mentions out of different things in the universe, what does he represent? And all these things are his external energy. And we should also read about Krishna's interactions with his external energies, because that is, if we do that with devotion and respect, that will get us out of the illusory energy of the Lord. And one reason I feel like this is important is that when you hear in Bhagavad Gita that out of the aquatic animals, Krishna says is the shark or the alligator, something like that. So when you know about these different categories, and so when you see such a creature, and when you're mentioned such a creature, that can remind you of Krishna. There might be different external stimuli, when we see a beautiful sunset, for materialist person, that is just okay, it's a beautiful sunset, it's beautiful nature. But for a devotee, it might be oh, Krishna so beautifully created such a beautiful sunset. And we all might have such a similar stimuli which reminds us of Krishna. Personally, every time I'm walking down the street and there's a gentle breeze, and when that I feel the pleasant sensation on my body, I always feel oh, Krishna is so kind, he created this gentle breeze, and because of that I'm feeling such a nice sensation. And he's so kind that he has given me the knowledge that it comes from him, so I can appreciate that Krishna is responsible for this. And I know a friend who has this sticker on his water bottle, Rasoham Apsukonteya, I'm the taste of water, what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. So every time he drinks, he was sharing with me that almost every time he drinks, he's reminded of that Krishna, that I'm the taste of water. So so maybe I would like to ask you guys, do you have such a personal thing where you see something or you feel something that usually reminds you of Krishna, and something that maybe when you were out in the material world you hadn't learned about Krishna, you just seen that as material, but right now you can appreciate as coming from Krishna, his presence?
Every time I look at the clouds, I think of Krishna. Krishna has a really good cloud game here in Florida, actually. But it's I was actually driving a car with someone once, and we were there's like it's this highway that is like in this very rural place. And I was very new to Christian consciousness, but this woman was like, I was like, oh, I love driving down this highway because it's so pretty. And she's like, well, do you ever think about who created that? My like people style. And I was like, no. And she's like, when you're looking at nature and you're not thinking about the person who created it, it's like looking at the painting without thinking of the painter. So now every time I see the clouds, because they change so often, and I'm just like, man, he's like constantly changing them, and they're always so beautiful. So the clouds for me really connect me to Krishna.
I can relate to that. There is a song, I think the devotee kids are usually taught that. It's called Blue Skies and White Clouds. Yeah, I don't know the song, but that talks about Krishna being the blue skies and Balaram being like the white clouds. And so, yes, thank you for reminding me of that. Yeah, so when you see clouds and skies, it can remind you of Krishna and Balaram.
Every time I'm out in nature, for sure, is when I think of Krishna and think of just how magnificent it is. Because me myself, I actually learned a 3D software named Blender, and so I know that you can create a forest. For instance, I've done it for a client before. So you put in the trees, and you put in, the different leaves on the ground, or you put the body of water. And so to think that literally, God just like laid it out perfectly just that way. And so when I'm in nature, it's just like you see all the intricate details, and it's like it's so detailed, like everything. There's a little ant that's there. It's just like this. It's such a big yet small world all at the same time. And so just that allowed me to have more appreciation for it, because I know how much work and how much time it takes just to create a forest. Like if you want to create a forest and it to be as detailed as what God does it as, it's like there's no way. You would have to be so good to precisely put each little animal, that's going to be using an animation or whatever, because that's what you do. You create animations for each thing. And so it just made me really appreciate it. So when I'm out in nature and I see the water flowing, I think that's God, and Krishna right there, like how it goes over the rocks, just all natural. And I love seeing, my favorite thing to see is like flowers and like plants that have like that perfect sacred geometry looking stuff to it. And just like, that's literally just amazing how that's just created, like, and there's so perfect intricacies. Yet here, when man creates stuff, it's all squares, it's all boxes, it's all like, very straight lines. But in nature, it's all like perfectly, like just not perfect. And that's what I love about nature. It just reminds me of God every time I see it in Krishna.
Nitai Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Before I became a brahmachari, I was working for a company that built mobile chips. And one of the problems that we were trying to solve was that the phones for which the chips were being built were overheating because people were playing games on them. And so the task was, how do you improve the performance of the chip so that teenagers can play games longer, right? And so, uh, it's kind of reason for why I decided to kind of stop doing that kind of work and becoming a brahmachari. But one day on the way to work, and this was in San Diego, in San Diego, especially close to the coastal areas, there are tons of these honeydew flowers. And you can see them because they have this bulb-like shape. And what's more interesting to see is how many hummingbirds are there. And these hummingbirds are, always on top of these flowers, sucking nectar from each of them. What's obviously so intriguing about the hummingbird is that it flaps its wings so fast. And so I had wondered, how is such a small creature able to flap its wings so fast and drink, and we're struggling to create this chip which will, optimize for performance inside the chip and keep the temperature under control. But God already created a chip, like He created this hummingbird which can already do this. And interestingly enough, we actually studied the biology of the hummingbird, and then we added it into the chips. Or if anybody has a Samsung S23, they'll notice how power efficient it is.
That's fine. That's the exact phone I have. Not the Apple ones, Samsung. Well, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, we notice, like, we always like appreciate nature, but when we have like knowledge of devotional service, knowledge of how Krishna has created these things, it just gives us an impetus to appreciate him, to thank him for it. These are called like udipakas, like stimulants of reminding us of Krishna. Bhaktivinoda Thakur talks about in one bhajan, like when like some things like in Vrindavan, like the Yamuna, the river Yamuna flowing, the sudden kind of flowers, certain kind of seasons, certain kind of trees, they all remind him of Krishna. And he says that, oh Krishna, these stimulants are my life and soul. Like I would not want to live without these like stimulants, because they constantly like remind me of you. And so when we also like practice, we can consciously practice like being reminded of Krishna, trying to remember Krishna when we see such like beauty in nature. That will also be like, and also all like our relationship with Krishna will also deepen, and we'll feel like we can't live without things which remind us of Krishna. And yeah, I think I have everything to share. That's all. Happy to hear comments and questions. Emma, and then Anthony.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, mine is kind of still on the last point, and that was really nice to remember, like stimulants of remembrance for Krishna. And I was trying to think, what is there outside of nature? Like what is, specifically only created by God? And I started to think traffic on Sundays when you're around the corner from a church can be a stimulus to think about God. Instead of getting angry in traffic, you can think, wow, look at all these people like coming to devote themselves, or tons of shoes outside of the door, or an ambulance driving by with their lights on. You can think, oh yeah, Krishna comes to people, especially in times of distress. People in distress often pray to God, so I can pray that whoever's in distress right now can remember Krishna or remember God. So there's so many stimuli.
Stimuli. Thank you for sharing that, Anthony.
Krishna, that was a beautiful class. I love the idea of the stimulants. And I'm speculating about speculation, right? And since I've came to devotional service, I've noticed that I have not developed any better qualities, but I'm hyper aware of them now. That voice has been amplified. So when I'm out in the world, it's harder for me to make a bad decision because that voice is just like right in front of my face. And one of my stimulants is like, it's more internal, but it's just like seeing people smile or laugh, which we do a lot around here. So every time like I see a smile, it feels like the Lord's like looking out of the corner of his eye and just like smiling at me. When you hear laughter or just any funny engagement, when somebody's being clever, I'm like, oh, that's Krishna's being clever. Or like somebody tells a joke, that's Krishna telling. Somebody's being naughty. It's like I try to imbue other devotees with those qualities. I'm like, oh, they're not their qualities, they're his qualities. They're just holding them for some time. I try to do that for myself, where if I do have a clever idea or a funny little joke inside my mind, I'm like, I didn't think of that. It's just passing through me. And I'm lucky enough to enjoy all the nature and the funny jokes. And I'm just bearing witness to it all.
Thank you. And that itself like shows like the great qualities that you have developed in consciousness, like your realization of these qualities, like observing them in other people, and also what you said about, oh, I'm just hyper aware, like of I cannot make a bad decision because I'm hyper aware. I can think back of a similar time, like in my experience at Krishna House. I think it was during my first or second year. I was really having some struggle with like playing mridanga. Just the fact that I hadn't really learned a lot of playing mridanga, but I really wanted to play a lot. And at that time, there were a lot of like very good Mridanga players. And I was like, sometimes I would feel envious that why do they get to play and why don't I get to play? I think in one of the classes during like COVID, we were hearing that just when you recognize that you're feeling envious, that's like a great beginning to the journey of when you can address it. And that kind of gave me like some like relief or some like assurance that I can work on it. I can feel happy eventually that they're serving Krishna, and I can also try to serve Krishna instead of why is it not me, and they get to enjoy like seeing it rather a source of enjoyment for me. I could see it as a service, but just when we're aware of what our mind says the wrong things, that is a great beginning, and that remembrance of that, like in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says he's remembrance and forgetfulness both. So when we can remember that this is something that I could do badly, or this is some of my bad qualities which is coming out, that is a great gift from Krishna. And when you said that, oh, I don't have any good qualities, well, these are all the great qualities that Krishna has given you. So thank you. Okay. Okay, everyone. Oh, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande.